Deku needs to be saved, but unlike a lot of people, I personally believe that it's impossible for him to be saved at this particular point in time. With the recent events of My Hero Academia chapter 318, we got teased very hard by Horikoshi with Bakugo coming in to save Deku at the end of the chapter. And this opened up a plethora of theories as to what's going to happen in the future events of the story, especially because we are on a 2-week break, so we have so much more time to theorize what's going to happen next. Now, when scrolling through Twitter, reading the comment section, and also hearing people discuss things in my Discord server, it seems like the overwhelming consensus is that Bakugo is going to somehow save Deku, or at least Bakugo's presence proposes the question on if he's going to actually save Deku. However, being that the first thing that we hear from Bakugo in the last 15 chapters was, guys, I found him, or correction, he's here, that heavily implies that he, along with the people that he's on the phone with, which is probably class 1A, has been looking for Deku for a long time to try to bring him back. I was talking to some people in my Discord server about this particular situation, and they were mentioning the idea that Bakugo is not going to be the only person that saves Deku, and in fact the main pierce of Deku has to be the one that saves him as well. So obviously the characters that are connected to Deku are 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚝, Shoto, and maybe Iida if you really want to go there. And the conclusion is that Deku is going to go back into class 2A and get some sense knocked into him by his peers, ultimately changing his belief system from an individualistic one to a co-op belief system where he will allow his friends to help him defeat the main villains. And I'm sorry, but that is just bad. Saving Deku is going to be impossible, and it's not going to be impossible because I don't believe characters like Bakugo, Shoto, Iida, 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚝 will not be able to bring Deku back to class 2A and try to knock some sense into him. I think it's going to be impossible because I don't think that anything that they were going to be able to do will affect Deku, and it mainly has to do with Deku's conversation and response to All Might, and Deku's conversation with other pro heroes like Endeavor, the One for All Vestiges, or more importantly All Might, are the signs that Deku probably isn't going to change at all no matter what they do. And I'm going to explain it individually so that you all can get an understanding as to what I'm saying. So when it comes to All Might as a character, he started off as the idol for everyone, being the #1 hero, the symbol of peace, and the person that almost everyone in the entire story of My Hero Academia wanted to look up to become the greatest hero, or if not the greatest hero that they can possibly be. I think we all know that based on Deku's room and the fact that this is a story of how he became the greatest hero, and the fact that All Might was the one who gave him All Might inspired Deku to become a hero, and Deku inspired All Might to give him the quirk One for All. The relationship between Deku and All Might started off as a master and pupil relationship in the beginning of the series, and has then developed to a more intimate relationship, more personal relationship with each other, so much so that you could even consider All Might to be a father figure for Deku, staking his entire life on the line to protect Deku for anything that could potentially happen to him, even though he's powerless. And Deku having the exact same emotional attachment to All Might, it's not really a character in the entire story that has even more of an attachment or connection than All Might and Deku. And the reason why that is so important as to why this mission of trying to save Deku is nearly impossible is simply due to the conversation that Deku had rejecting All Might in My Hero Academia chapter 317. The conversation between Deku and All Might was easily one of the saddest conversations that I have read in the entire story. Deku rejecting All Might's help, telling him that he doesn't need to look back at him, nor does he need to care about him ever anymore, because now he has the exact same power that All Might had in his prime, and if he can effectively take care of everything without All Might, then he will do as he needs to. Being so stubborn and fueled by confusion and fear of what's going to happen to All Might in the future, to where you reject the only person that can understand you and put all the responsibilities of everybody and everything onto your shoulders when you don't need to, is the exact reason why it's going to be nearly impossible for characters like 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚝, Bakugo, Shoto, and Iida, or anyone to have conversations with him and knock sense into him. It's to the point where even in My Hero Academia chapter 318, the vestiges inside of One for All are literally saying he's not listening to them as well. And as the 4th user said, having the abilities of all the One for All users are literally the thing that are making him go further into what he's doing, because now that he thinks he has the strength and abilities to take down All for One, and all he has to do to bring peace to the world is to take down All for One, if he used the power that he has and put every ounce of energy that he can to try to find All for One and defeat him, then everything will be okay. So for Deku, the ends justify the means. So how does this connect to Bakugo, Shoto, 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚗, and whoever else you would like to use for him doing? For some reason, a lot of people look at 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚗 as a character and view her in high regards for Deku's development in the series as a whole. And unfortunately, that's not a true case, and actually it's the opposite. Deku affects 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒's development more so than 𝙲𝚘𝚏, 𝚲𝚅 affects Deku's development. And there's never been a time in the entire series where it has been the opposite. If you look throughout the entire series at the dynamic of Deku and 𝚲𝚅, the only thing that you will get out of it is 𝚲𝚅 is motivated by Deku, or 𝚲𝚅 wants to be better because of Deku, or 𝚲𝚅 wants to develop because of Deku. So if 𝚲𝚅 was in a situation where everything was kind of great in her head and Deku were to have a conversation trying to convince her to change her mindset, he would have a significantly higher impact in swaying her emotions and her thought patterns to make her become better. Whereas in the entire story of My Hero Academia, the opposite has never been true. Deku has never been inspired, motivated, or wanted to develop and become better because of 𝚲𝚅. And in fact, there's never a time in this series where 𝚲𝚅's ideas or thought patterns really affected Deku to the point where he actually wanted to change. So it's kind of difficult for me to personally believe that 𝚲𝚅 will be a character that can truly be somebody who can affect Deku's mindset to change his ends justify the means type of mentality, when there's never been a time in the entire story where she's been able to even confess her love for Deku, let alone have a moment where Deku is able to express his feelings or his emotions or thoughts to her or any type of thing. So really the only characters that can do anything much to Deku in this particular situation are Bakugo and Shoto maybe. Where Shoto, you can kind of put him as like a 1B, but you don't really want to put him at the 1 because he's not as connected to Deku as Bakugo. Bakugo is the only character in the entire series that Deku views in the same sentence as All Might. And actually in some cases you can say that Bakugo is actually higher than All Might. We know for a fact that Bakugo can affect Deku, but the only thing that's wrong with Bakugo is that he never was able to express with words how he feels about Deku in whatever situation he's going through. And that's even more relevant considering that their second fight with each other is Deku understanding that Bakugo is only able to communicate how he feels with Deku through fighting. There's never really been a time where Deku is in this particular situation, so obviously Bakugo never had a chance to verbally explain himself or express himself to Deku on this granular scale of trying to save him from his own ideals. Unlike 𝚲𝚅, Deku really cares about the opinions and thoughts of Bakugo. However, it's really hard for me to just say that Bakugo is going to be able to knock some sense into Deku, even though I know that he's going to effectively knock some sense into Deku physically. Based on the setup of how the last chapter ended, it seems like Bakugo and Deku are going to fight again and Bakugo's probably going to knock Deku out. But will that be enough for Deku to stop his mental madness and then calm himself down so that he can at least think rationally about what he's going to do for the future? I mean, even after Bakugo bodies Deku and brings him back to class 2A, he has to have a conversation with Deku to change his mind. And I just cannot for the life of me picture Bakugo actually being able to communicate with Deku verbally about why he should not focus on doing everything by himself and think more rationally about what he's going to do in the future. Because All Might was literally trying to talk to him and he didn't listen at all. It can very much be a situation where because All Might can't fight for himself or he can't do anything for himself, Deku views him as lesser than because he has to feel like he needs to protect him. Whereas if Bakugo and on the lesser end Shoto and on the lesser end of that Ida and 𝚲𝚅 were to talk him through being rational, he might accept because they're actually competent and they can actually fight and hold their own in battle. That might be the way that it can save Deku from himself. But simply due to the fact that he wasn't listening to Endeavor, the One for All Vestiges, and All Might himself, for me it seems very impossible for Deku to be saved. And more than likely the only thing that's going to be able to save Deku is Deku not being able to save All Might, which will give him a wake-up call on what he needs to do for the future. And interestingly enough, I have a video of All Might's death right here, so you should check that out right now. Win your zone every single day.